Here are Grandma's 50 ingenious home hacks to try today to save time, money, and effort. Save stale bread with a damp cloth and oven. Bring a hardening loaf of bread back to soft and fresh using nothing but water and heat. Wrap the stale loaf in a slightly damp cloth, then place it in an oven warmed to about 300 degrees for 10 minutes. The steam trapped inside the cloth rehydrates the crust and crumb together. Keep brown sugar soft with a slice of bread. Did you know that you can stop brown sugar from hardening into a solid block by tucking a slice of plain bread into the container? Brown sugar hardens as it loses moisture to the surrounding air, and the bread slowly releases just enough moisture to keep the crystals soft. Seal the container tightly and swap the bread out every couple of weeks once it dries out completely. Remove rust using a potato and salt. Lift light surface rust off metal tools using a raw potato and a spoonful of salt. Oxalic acid naturally found in potatoes helps dissolve rust, while salt adds gentle abrasion to scrub it loose. Cut the potato in half, dip the cut side into salt, and scrub it directly over the rusted area the way Grandma always did with old garden tools. Clean copper with lemon and salt. Restore dull, tarnished copper cookware to a bright shine using half a lemon dipped in salt. The citric acid in lemon juice breaks down the tarnish, while the salt provides just enough grit to buff it away. Rub the salted lemon directly over the copper surface in circular motions, then rinse with warm water and dry immediately to prevent water spots. Brighten white laundry with sunlight. Whiten dingy laundry naturally by hanging damp white fabric outdoors in direct sunlight. Sunlight triggers a natural bleaching reaction in the fibers, breaking down stains and yellowing without any harsh chemicals. Hang the wet items on a line for several hours, turning them once if one side dries faster. Grandma always saved her whitest sheets for the sunniest days of the week for exactly this reason. Freshen carpets with baking soda. Pull musty odors out of carpet fibers using a generous sprinkle of plain baking soda. Baking soda absorbs odor molecules rather than simply masking them with a fragrance. Sprinkle it evenly across the carpet. Let it sit for at least 20 minutes, then sweep or beat it out thoroughly. For stronger odors, leave the baking soda overnight before removing it completely the next morning. Repel moths with cedar blocks. Protect wool sweaters and blankets from moth damage by tucking cedar blocks into drawers and closets. The natural oils in cedar wood contain compounds that moths find unbearable, keeping them from laying eggs on stored fabric. Sand the surface of the blocks lightly every few months to release fresh oil once the scent starts to fade. Replace blocks entirely after a couple of years of use. Store apples away from potatoes to slow spoilage. Keep both apples and potatoes fresh longer by storing them in separate parts of the pantry. Apples release ethylene gas as they ripen, which speeds up sprouting in nearby potatoes far faster than usual. Keep potatoes in a cool, dark, well-ventilated spot completely apart from any fruit bowl. This one simple separation noticeably extends how long both will last in storage. Sharpen scissors by cutting aluminum foil. Restore dull kitchen scissors to a sharper edge using a sheet of ordinary aluminum foil. Fold the foil several times into a thick strip, then cut through it repeatedly with the scissors. The mild abrasive quality of the foil realigns and hones the blade's edge with each pass. This trick works best as light maintenance between real sharpenings, not as a total replacement for one. Remove candle wax with brown paper and a warm iron. Lift dried candle wax off fabric or a tablecloth using a paper bag and a warm iron. Place a piece of plain brown paper over the wax spot, then press a warm iron gently on top. The heat melts the wax, which the paper absorbs instead of letting it spread further into the fibers. Scrub cast iron with coarse salt. Clean a cast iron skillet without ever using soap, which strips away its seasoning over time, exactly the way Grandma always warned against. Coarse salt acts as a gentle abrasive that lifts stuck food without scratching the metal. Pour a generous handful of salt into the warm pan and scrub with a folded cloth in small circles. Remove water rings from wood with mayonnaise. Erase a cloudy water ring left behind by a glass on a wooden table using plain mayonnaise. The oil content in mayonnaise slowly seeps into the wood grain, displacing the trapped moisture causing the white mark. Spread a thick layer over the ring and let it sit for several hours, or overnight for stubborn marks. Wipe away completely with a soft cloth once the ring is faded. Revive wilted lettuce in ice water. Bring limp, tired lettuce leaves back to a crisp bite using a bowl of ice water. Cold water causes plant cells to absorb moisture through their walls, plumping the leaves back up. Submerge the wilted lettuce completely and let it sit in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes. Dry thoroughly with a clean towel afterward, since wet leaves turn soggy again quickly. Polish silver with baking soda and aluminum foil. Bring tarnished silverware back to a bright shine using baking soda and a sheet of aluminum foil. This creates a chemical reaction that transfers tarnish off the silver and onto the foil instead of scrubbing it away by hand. Line a bowl with foil, add hot water and baking soda, and submerge the silver for several minutes. Deodorize shoes with baking soda overnight. Get rid of lingering shoe odor by sprinkling a spoonful of baking soda directly inside each shoe before bed. Baking soda absorbs the moisture and odor-causing bacteria that build up from a day of wear. Let it sit undisturbed overnight, then simply shake or tap the shoes out over a trash can in the morning. Repeat weekly for shoes that see the heaviest daily use. Keep flour weevil-free with bay leaves. Protect stored flour from tiny weevils the same way Grandma kept her pantry safe, by tucking a whole bay leaf directly into the container. The strong scent bay leaves release is unpleasant to the insects that lay eggs in dry goods. Add 1 leaf per container and replace it every few months once the scent fades. Darken faded fabrics with strong black tea. Restore the deep color of a faded black or brown garment using a strong tea bath. Tannins in black tea act as a natural dye, settling into fibers that have lost their original richness. Steep several tea bags in hot water, let it cool slightly, then soak the fabric for 15 to 20 minutes. Rinse thoroughly and let it air dry, checking color depth before it dries completely. Remove sticky labels with cooking oil. Peel a stubborn label off a jar without leaving a gummy mess behind using ordinary cooking oil. The oil breaks down the adhesive, holding the label to the glass or plastic surface. Rub a small amount directly onto the sticky residue and let it sit for a few minutes. Wipe clean with a cloth, and the label should lift away completely instead of shredding into pieces. Balance acidic tomato sauce with a pinch of sugar. Smooth out a sauce that tastes too sharp or acidic using just a pinch of sugar. Sugar doesn't remove the acidity chemically, but it balances the flavor enough that your tongue barely notices the sharpness. Stir in a small amount at a time, tasting as you go, the way Grandma always did, since it's easy to add too much at once. Test oil temperature with a wooden spoon. Did you know that you can check if frying oil is hot enough without a thermometer using the handle of a wooden spoon? Dip the wood into the oil, and if small, steady bubbles rise around it, the oil is ready for frying. Wood is porous enough that trapped air escapes visibly the moment it meets hot oil. Keep celery crisp wrapped in aluminum foil. Stop celery from going limp in the crisper drawer by wrapping the whole bunch in aluminum foil instead of a plastic bag. Foil allows the natural ethylene gas celery releases to escape rather than trapping it against the stalks. Wrap it loosely but completely, and it should stay crisp for several weeks longer than usual. Rewrap it fresh each time you use a portion of the bunch. Clean windows with vinegar and newspaper. Get a truly streak-free shine on glass using a vinegar solution and crumpled newspaper instead of paper towels. Newspaper is dense enough to buff glass completely smooth, while paper towels leave behind tiny lint fibers. Mix equal parts water and vinegar in a spray bottle, mist the glass, then wipe dry with the newspaper in circular motions. The ink itself also helps polish the glass to an extra shine. Freeze fresh herbs in ice cubes. Preserve fresh herbs for months by chopping them and freezing them directly in ice cube trays. Water or oil trapped around the herbs prevents the freezer air from drying them out and stripping their flavor. Fill each tray compartment with chopped herbs, top with water or olive oil, and freeze until solid. Pop a cube directly into soups, stews, or sauces whenever a recipe calls for fresh herbs. Lift grease stains with cornstarch. Pull a fresh grease stain out of fabric before it ever reaches the wash using plain cornstarch. Cornstarch absorbs oil the moment it touches fabric, drawing the grease up and away from the fibers. Sprinkle a generous layer directly onto the stain and let it sit for at least 15 minutes. Brush off the cornstarch, then launder as usual, checking the spot before it goes in the dryer. Remove coffee stains using salt. Lift a fresh coffee stain out of fabric or a countertop using plain table salt. Salt draws moisture and pigment out of the stain before it has a chance to set into the surface. Sprinkle it generously over the spill while it's still wet and let it absorb for several minutes. Brush or rinse away the salt, repeating once more if any discoloration remains behind. Oh, and if you love hacks like these, I put over 100 more in Grandma's Household Bible. Links below. Now let's talk cutting boards. Sanitize wooden cutting boards with lemon and salt. Clean and deodorize a wooden cutting board without harsh chemicals using half a lemon and coarse salt. Salt provides gentle scrubbing power, while the acid in lemon juice helps cut through grease and lingering food odors. Sprinkle salt across the board, then scrub with the cut side of a lemon, pressing firmly into stains and knife marks. Rinse well and let the board air dry standing upright. Stop pots from boiling over with a wooden spoon. Keep a pot of pasta or rice from bubbling over the stove by resting a wooden spoon across the rim. Wood breaks the surface tension of the rising foam, causing bubbles to pop before spilling over. Lay the spoon flat across the top the moment the pot starts to boil. This small trick saves you from scrubbing burnt starch off the stovetop every time you cook. Deodorize glass jars with dry mustard. Remove lingering onion or garlic smells from glass jars using a spoonful of dry mustard powder. Mustard powder neutralizes strong food odors trapped in glass rather than simply covering them up. Add a teaspoon of dry mustard to the jar along with warm water. Swirl it around and let it sit for a few minutes. Rinse thoroughly, and the jar should smell completely neutral again. Preserve fresh eggs by coating them with mineral oil. Extend the shelf life of fresh eggs for months by coating each shell in a thin layer of mineral oil. The oil seals the tiny pores in the shell, keeping air and bacteria from getting in and moisture from escaping. Rub a small amount of oil over the entire shell using a soft cloth, then store the eggs in a cool spot, pointed end down. Store cheese in wax paper instead of plastic. Keep cheese fresher for longer by wrapping it in wax paper rather than sealing it in plastic wrap. Cheese needs to breathe slightly, and plastic traps moisture against the surface, encouraging mold to form faster. Wrap the cheese loosely in wax paper, then place it in a partially open container in the refrigerator. Rewrap it fresh with a new sheet each time you cut into it. Store onions in hanging stockings. Keep a whole bag of onions fresh for months the way Grandma always did, storing them in a hanging pair of old stockings. Tie a knot after dropping in each onion, creating separate little pockets down the length of the stocking. Hang it in a cool, dry pantry where air can circulate freely around each one. Dry herbs by hanging small bundles upside down. Preserve a garden herb harvest for the winter by hanging small bundles upside down in a dry, dark spot. Hanging herbs upside down keeps their natural oils concentrated in the leaves rather than draining toward the stem. Gather a small handful, tie the stems together with string, and hang them somewhere with good airflow for 1 to 2 weeks. Scatter eggshells around plants to deter slugs. Protect tender garden plants from slugs and snails using crushed eggshells scattered around the base of each one. The sharp, jagged edges are uncomfortable for these soft-bodied pests to crawl across. Rinse, dry, and crush your saved eggshells, then sprinkle a thick ring around vulnerable plants like lettuce and hostas. Replace the ring after heavy rain washes it away or breaks it down completely. Enrich garden soil with crushed eggshells. Feed calcium back into garden soil using nothing but crushed eggshells you've already saved from the kitchen. Calcium strengthens plant cell walls, helping prevent blossom end rot in tomatoes and peppers. Dry the shells, crush them into a fine powder, and work a tablespoon into the soil around each plant at the start of the season. The shells break down gradually, feeding the soil over several months. Make homemade vegetable stock from kitchen scraps. Turn vegetable peels, ends, and trimmings into a rich, flavorful stock instead of throwing them away. Simmering scraps slowly releases their flavor compounds into the water, creating a base just as good as anything store-bought. Save onion skins, carrot ends, and celery leaves in a bag in the freezer until you have a full quart. Keep cookies soft with a slice of bread. Stop a batch of cookies from turning hard and stale by storing them with a slice of plain bread. The cookies slowly draw moisture from the bread instead of losing their own moisture to the air. Place the bread directly in the container with the cookies and seal it tightly. Swap the bread out every few days for the freshest results over a longer stretch of storage. Remove tree sap from hands with butter. Clean sticky pine sap off your hands using a small dab of plain butter instead of harsh soap. The fat in butter breaks down the sap's sticky resin, allowing it to rub away cleanly. Work a small amount into the sap-covered skin, massaging gently for a minute before rinsing with warm water. Wash your hands with regular soap afterward to remove any greasy residue left behind. Freshen mattresses by airing them in the sun. Refresh a mattress and cut down on trapped odors by airing it outside in direct sunlight for a few hours. Sunlight naturally kills bacteria and dust mites while helping evaporate any trapped moisture inside the fibers. Prop the mattress against a railing or fence on a dry, sunny day, flipping it once halfway through. Keep matches dry in rice-filled jars. Protect a box of matches from humidity by storing them inside a jar filled with dry rice. Rice absorbs excess moisture from the air before it ever reaches the matchsticks themselves. Bury the matchbox in the rice completely, then seal the jar with a tight lid. This keeps matches striking reliably even in a damp basement or during a humid summer. Free-stuck wooden drawers with bar soap. Fix a wooden drawer that sticks every time you try to open it using a plain bar of soap. Rub the soap directly along the wooden runners on both sides of the drawer, coating them with a thin, waxy layer. Slide the drawer in and out a few times to work the soap into the wood grain. Remove pet hair using damp rubber gloves. Pull embedded pet hair off carpet and upholstery using nothing but a pair of damp rubber gloves. Rubber creates static and friction that grabs onto stubborn hair. A broom alone tends to miss completely. Wet the gloves slightly, put them on, and run your hands across the surface in one steady direction. The hair balls up into clumps you can simply lift away by hand. Clean narrow bottles with rice and vinegar. Scrub the inside of a narrow-necked bottle or vase using a handful of raw rice and a splash of vinegar. The grains act as a gentle abrasive that a brush or cloth simply can't reach inside such a tight space. Pour rice and vinegar into the bottle, cover the opening, and shake vigorously for about a minute. Extend cut flower life with a copper penny. Keep a vase of fresh flowers blooming days longer by dropping an old copper penny into the water. Copper has natural antibacterial properties that slow the growth of bacteria, which is what usually causes stems to rot and flowers to wilt early. Add 1 penny to the vase along with a teaspoon of sugar for extra nourishment, just the way Grandma always finished off a fresh bouquet. Remove ink stains by soaking in milk. Lift a stubborn ink stain out of fabric by soaking the garment in a bowl of plain milk overnight. The proteins in milk help break down and loosen the ink's pigment from the fibers over time. Submerge the stained area completely and let it sit for several hours before laundering as usual. Check the stain before drying the fabric, since heat can set any ink that's still remaining. Deodorize the refrigerator with charcoal. Eliminate lingering food odors inside a refrigerator using a small bowl of activated charcoal placed on a shelf. Charcoal is highly porous and absorbs odor molecules out of the air rather than masking them. Set an open bowl or a cloth pouch of charcoal toward the back of a shelf and leave it undisturbed. Replace it every couple of months once it stops noticeably improving the smell. Build a simple bucket mouse trap. Catch a mouse without snapping a spring-loaded trap using Grandma's simple bucket and ramp method. Prop a thin board against the rim of a deep bucket as a ramp and smear a bit of peanut butter on a spinning can balanced across the top. The mouse climbs up for the bait, the can spins, and it drops safely into the bucket below. Turn citrus peels into an all-purpose cleaner. Did you know that you can make a natural, pleasant-smelling cleaner using nothing but saved citrus peels and vinegar? The natural oils in citrus peels contain D-limonene, a compound that cuts through grease and grime effectively. Pack a jar loosely with orange or lemon peels, cover completely with white vinegar, and let it steep for 2 weeks. Strain the liquid into a spray bottle and dilute it with water before using it on counters. Polish wood furniture with vinegar and linseed oil. Restore the shine of dull wood furniture using a simple mix of vinegar and linseed oil. Vinegar cuts through built-up grime, while linseed oil nourishes and conditions the dry wood underneath. Combine equal parts of both in a jar and shake well before applying a small amount to a soft cloth. Ripen green tomatoes in a paper bag. Turn hard. Green tomatoes ripen red within days using nothing but a paper bag. Tomatoes release ethylene gas naturally as they ripen, and trapping that gas inside a bag speeds the process considerably. Place the green tomatoes inside a paper bag, fold the top closed, and store it somewhere at room temperature. Check daily, removing each tomato as it reaches the color and softness you're looking for. Keep biscuits flaky by chilling the dough before baking. Get taller, flakier biscuits every time by chilling the dough for at least 20 minutes before it goes in the oven. Cold butter creates small pockets of steam as it bakes, which is exactly what gives biscuits their light, layered texture. Cut the butter into the flour, shape the dough, then rest it in the refrigerator before cutting and baking, since Grandma never rushed this step and never ended up with flat, dense biscuits. For more content like this, click here to subscribe.